Okay. Here's that thing where I wait for it. Oh man, YouTube is wait. Twitter was first. Twitter's always first. But YouTube's really lining up. What's up, Phoenicia? How are you? How are things out in the UK? I hope they are wonderful. YouTube is definitely awake. Where we at over on the Rockfin? Is Rockfin awake? Rockfin is awake. All right. We're right on time here. It is exactly 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Like I always say here. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and to everyone in the future. How's it going? Did World War III start yet? I hope not. I hope not. Please tell me World War III has not started yet in the future. What a time. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the headlines portion of the show. Real quick, shout out to the folks who help make this show possible. Our friends over at Indie Left. Indie Left is a place to find a lot of the content creators and streamers you know and love. They curate a list, updated twice a day. Check out independentleft.media to see what they got going on, to subscribe to their Discord. All right. Helping me through the headlines today is none other than he's a regular. We're going to be on the road together some in April. Very funny comedian. Please welcome back to the show, Mr. Krish Moen. What's up, Krish?
Hello. Good to be here. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. So we got some headlines to get through. We got some strike news in Seattle, some
Yeah.
strike news having to do with Starbucks, which is actually a Seattle-based company. So that's an interesting theme that we're tied together here. We also got some digital rights news. Digital rights organization Fight for the Future is dealing with some stuff right now. We're going to go through that. But I think that while we're going to do all that, we kind of have to acknowledge what is going on in the world right now with Russia and Ukraine. I know that a lot of places they are covering it very extensively. We're not going to be doing that here. Get Your News On with Ron is kind of the show to focus on a lot of the issues that go underreported, stuff in the digital rights space, in the labor rights space. That's kind of more of what we specialize in here. And sometimes there's random rants about music or cats. But but I feel like with everything going on in Russia, Ukraine, it's you can't not acknowledge it. So I'll say this, and then Krish, I'll turn it over to you. Look, again, we've said this on the show before, and we'll keep saying it. There are no good guys here. The United States has been an aggressor from day one. They've been funneling these weapons. They've been using Ukraine as a pawn. Margaret Kimberly said this on Twitter. I like the way she put it. It's basically they self-fulfilled a prophecy. That's what the U.S. did. So they are not a good guy. Now, does that mean that Putin's actions are okay? Absolutely not. Putin is not a good guy here. There were other countries that wanted a diplomatic solution. There were other things on the table. He did what he did anyway. It is wrong. It is 100% wrong. Also, the neo-Nazis in Ukraine we're giving weapons to. They're not good guys either. They are bad people, and innocent people are dying right now. Innocent people in Ukraine who are just trying to live their lives are dying right now. So 3 wrongs do not make a right. 3 wrongs make a frickin' war. And it is a mess right now. And there are no good guys. And I know we live in a world where having the comprehension skills of a 6-year-old is for whatever reason encouraged, but you don't have to be that way. There are no good guys. There are only bad guys. The world is not a comic book. And the real enemy at the end of the day is imperialism around the world and the fossil fuel industry, which this can all be tied to that. It can all be tied to the stock market. People are already talking about how stocks are going up and down because of all this, and innocent people are dying. And this sucks. War sucks. Krish, what do you want to say?
Yeah, and I agree with everything you're saying. I've looked at a lot of the our friends in the lefty independent journalism space talk about what's going on and how NATO pushed further east, which was not part of their agreement, and that's what pushed Putin to take the actions that he took. But again, this is not really a reason to start a war. There were, like you said, Zelensky wanted a peaceful resolution. I believe Germany was looking for a peaceful resolution as well.
Yeah.
France wasn't fully on board, so even NATO countries weren't. But regardless, it's like this is not an excuse for what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And really, like you said, the people that are going to pay for this, both economically and by losing their homes, by essentially having their lives ripped apart are people in Ukraine and people in the United States, because now this is just an excuse to increase the astronomical war budget that we have in the United States and cut things like food stamps, cut things like affordable
Mhm.
housing, health care, worker wages. All of the domestic issues are now going to be affected because of this, and it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is they can sit there and go on corporate media all day long and pretend, oh, what a shame this is, and we're protecting freedom and whatever
Mhm.
bullshit they want to spin, but they don't care because they've been calling for this, they've been aching for this. And Raytheon stocks are going to go up, and Lockheed Martin stocks are going to go up. And I'm going to keep saying this, and I know you've heard me say this before. There are no good wars, there's only profitable ones.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
people that are winning are the people that are working in lockstep with war profiteers. That's it. Those are the only people that are
Smedley
winning.
Butler wrote the book a long time ago.
Yeah, the secret's out.
All right. So there you have it. And yeah, I'm sure that if you have that approach where there are no good guys, you will get called all kinds of names. You'll be called a Putin apologist by some. You'll be called, another apologist by others. I mean, it just anyway. All right. So that really sucks. It's terrible what's going on. And let's jump into some other news here on the Get Your News On with Ron docket. All right. So we've been following what's going on out in Seattle. And what's happening in Seattle is a bunch of concrete mixers have been on strike. Some of them have been on strike as long ago as November. But it's escalated, it's continued, the strike has continued, and they are shutting down billions in projects, a bunch of projects, billions worth. They are just shutting it down. And why are they shutting it down? Well, they're shutting it down because the companies are messing with their healthcare. They're trying to nickel and dime them on their freaking healthcare. By the way, these are concrete mixer workers who worked during the pandemic, who put their health on the line during the pandemic, and now, still during the pandemic, they're trying to nickel and dime them on healthcare, and they're saying this is not okay. Yeah, this is not okay. Now, you would think the city of Seattle would be on the side of the workers, right? These are workers in Seattle. Surely you're going to be on their side when they're messing with their healthcare during a pandemic. That cannot be okay. No. The Seattle mayor actually threatened an emergency response. We're not sure exactly what that'll entail, but he's threatening an emergency response if they don't just shut up and go back to work. Here's some footage from More Perfect Union. We're going to go ahead and check this out
Before
here.
you play that, I just and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe Seattle's mayor is a Democrat, right?
I'm not sure, but I'd imagine so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd imagine. I'm not even sure if mayor is a partisan office there or not, but I would imagine he's a Democrat. Yeah.
It feels, yeah, Seattle does feel like a very neoliberal democratically run city. But I
Hmm.
mean, if it is a Democrat, again, it goes to say that as much as they claim to be the party of the people, they especially over the course of the last 2 years, have proved that they're not, by taking actions like this, by threatening workers, and siding with large corporations that have enough money to increase the pay for the salary for their workers and provide them with health care.
Yeah, man. Well, and I used to live in Seattle, and it's like, yeah, I mean, is it more socially progressive than a lot of other places in the United States? Totally. But then, like, economically, they do the same neoliberal stuff. And
Hmm.
it's just a developer's playground. It's Jeff Bezos's playground. It's Bill Gates's playground. I mean, that's why when people talk about like progressive utopias in the United States, I'm like, where is this place? Where? Where? I've lived in Seattle. I live in Southern California now. I've lived in Pennsylvania. I've lived in Tennessee. I've lived in Indiana, although no one accuses those places of being progressive utopias. But still, where is this? Where there's a progressive place? I don't think there is one. Full disclaimer: I've never lived in Eugene, Oregon, so I maybe something's out there somewhere. But even that, I kind of doubt it because isn't that the home of Nike, one of the most repulsive companies in the world?
Oof.
I'm pretty sure so.
Oof.
No, like we are in a capitalist hellscape, and you really can't escape it. anywhere in this country. That's what I think anyway. All right, so
Agreed.
let's watch this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tower cranes up downtown.
First of all, I know people have pointed this out many times. Lauren Ashcraft pointed this out on this show, but this has got to be said. Epic beard.
That's
I mean, yeah, it's
gorgeous
like,
beard.
Denny, yeah, that's probably why they appointed this guy to be the spokesperson. They were like, Denny, your freaking beard. And he's like, I get it. I mean, maybe he never spoke in public before, for all we know. But they were like, Denny, with that beard, you got to go public with this. For everyone listening to the podcast later, I'm sorry you're missing out on this. But the concrete mixer driver up in Seattle, Denny Emerson, has an epic beard. It is incredible.
Even ZZ Top is giving them a slow clap here.
Oh,
totally. That's just what a gorgeous beard. This is dedication right here.
I think, unfortunately, I don't think ZZ Top is a band anymore. Dusty Hill, rest in power. But I think if they were, they would offer this guy a gig as a roadie. I mean, they would have to. They have to be like, look, if you're tired of being a concrete mixer driver, you can be our roadie. It's not, I don't think it's crossing a picket line if you're just offered a different job from someone totally unrelated, right? ZZ Top has nothing to do with this.
And they're like, we're going to give you health care with dental and vision.
And you can take as many trips as you want to get that beard taken care of, baby. That's going to be filed under preventative care. That beard deserves top shelf treatment. But he doesn't need any help, man. He's crushing it on his own.
He's doing great.
That's an epic beard. All right, but he also has some important things to say. So here we go.
And just drove through there, and those jobs are ghost towns right now. They need concrete. They're waiting on concrete. We want a deal. We want to go back to work.
We are a band of 330 ready mix drivers, dump truck drivers that take a lot of pride in our work.
How long can Seattle go without the construction continuing? We're willing to stay out here as long as we have to.
Because of the ongoing demonstrations, Seattle's $23 billion construction industry has paused without concrete.
Over 300 concrete workers are striking. The Teamsters General Strike has shut down construction.
We worked through the pandemic for them, made them a ton of money during the pandemic. And to turn around and deny these families the same medical coverage that we earned, just 2-3 years ago is crazy.
They think they can benefit in the long run off of shortchanging us.
How could you even think about doing that to someone?
Yeah, and this was it's wild because this is exactly the same thing that the Frito-Lay workers said.
They did the same thing there. They just kind of like
it was the same reason. They were working like almost every day between 12 and 18 hours, and they worked through the pandemic with that kind of a grueling schedule, and they never got raises. They never got better health care, nothing. And
did they mess with their health care?
They just weren't receiving any health care because a lot of they were considering them under part-time. Like it was bad. And a lot of what the workers at Frito-Lay were fighting for was better hours and better pay and just better work conditions so they could like see their family and stuff. And it's the same reason where they were like, we worked all the way through the pandemic and busted our ass so that the CEO can make a shit ton of money and he can't even offer us a cost of living raise.
Think about what you just said, though, man. They want to see their families. I mean, is it fair to say, this is sort of like a philosophical question, and we're going to get back to the rest of this in just a second, but like, do you think, have we reached feudalism? Are we here?
I would say so. I mean,
I would too.
Yeah, this is basically the exact same thing as what feudalism was, and there were a couple of economists back in 2017 calling for this. They were like, we're heading in this direction if you don't start.
They were saying we're heading towards feudalism. They weren't cheering it on. They weren't like,
here we
feudalism,
are. Yeah.
rah, rah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they were like, this is going to be the same thing as it was back in the day, except it's just going to be tech companies that are going to drive and look what happened, right? Like, what's the biggest company in Seattle? It's fucking Amazon, and they're becoming more of a tech company than they are anything else, and they're probably driving corporate standards in that city, just like I'm sure Google does in California.
When I lived in Seattle, which was 2007 to about 2010, that was when a lot of this ugliness really started accelerating. and places were getting less and less affordable, different neighborhoods. And you know, it has gotten a lot worse since then. I tell people the neighborhood that I used to live in Seattle, I lived in the Fremont neighborhood, which, by the way, is a wonderful place. I love that neighborhood so much. But that neighborhood used to be a reasonably affordable neighborhood that you could afford to live in. You know, I mean, I was very underemployed when I lived up there. I was just kind of doing comedy at night, but I was a new comedian. I wasn't making any money at it. Occasionally getting some road dates and just working temp jobs to get by. And I could survive in that neighborhood. Now, that neighborhood is almost as pricey as some of the neighborhoods in Los Angeles. I wouldn't be able, like, I tell people, I'm like, the location that I lived in back then, I wouldn't be able to live in now with where I'm at as an adult now. I wouldn't be able to live there now with where I'm at, but I was able to live there then as just like a broke 20-year-old or 20.
Oh yeah, the first neighborhood I lived in Pittsburgh, the Bloomfield neighborhood. I lived there and was comfortably making a living as a road comic, and was able to pay my rent and keep up on my bills. Where now I'm in a much better financial situation, and I still wouldn't be able to afford to live in that neighborhood anymore.
Great. I mean, they are decimating. They're just decimating. Well, I mean, we know this. Like the middle class is pretty much over, but it's like they're not stopping at the middle class. They're decimating the creative class. That is just ending, and nothing's stopping. Like, yeah, we're here. Like, I mean, I would say things, and y'all have probably heard me say it on this show, that it's like, oh, we're heading towards neo-feudalism. I got to stop saying that. We're here.
We're here. We're there.
Here.
Yeah.
I mean, and getting back to Seattle for just a second, I remember I had this temp job in an office, and it was a miserable job. I mean, it was just, everybody was just miserable. Like it really did feel like something out of 1984. It was just this creepy dystopian work environment, which is not unique. It's actually quite common. But I remember this guy was considering a lateral move to take this gig at Microsoft. And he was talking to someone about it, and he just said, yeah, I kind of like seeing my family. And that was his reason for not taking the job. He was like, I kind of want to see my family. And it's not like this was some like crazy demanding, like he was going to be a CEO or something like that. This was like just a mid-level management job, a good job, don't get me wrong, but it probably paid like, you know, maybe 65 a year or something like that. That's a perfectly fine salary, but is that the type of salary where you have to pick between wanting to see your family? I mean, first of all, there's no salary where that should be what you have to freaking put on the table. But I mean, it's like, what the hell? I mean, I was listening to that and I was like, something, and people were just listening like that's a normal situation to be in, and that's a normal thing to say. And if, by the way, if my family in Italy was overhearing that conversation, they would be like, what? You guys are fucking nuts. You guys are insane. What do you mean? Oh, to have this job, I better not see I won't be able to see my family grow up.
Right.
Because I'm going to be working 24/7. I mean, it's crazy. And we're going to get to how they screw over the working class more with another story over at Starbucks. But so let's kind of, let's see what else there is to this. I think there's a little more.
When they've even said they have the money to give us what we're looking for,
The biggest single thing we're demanding is respect.
and they refuse to negotiate. It's their turn to put another offer on the table, and they refuse.
So they're not even negotiating with them. The Teamsters have been on strike for over 60 days. The strike started with just 34 drivers in November, so that's where it started. 34 in November. Now it's spread to 6 construction
companies know that.
So all these companies are just screwing them over on healthcare. They won't even come to the table. And the Seattle mayor is like, well, I guess we need to do an emergency response. The emergency response should be demanding these companies give the workers what they're asking for.
And do what China is doing to billionaires and put real economic punishments on the table. Don't do this. Oh, well, we'll fine you $1 million. Well, to most of these corporations, $1 million is a chump change. It's like, it's like throwing
it's like a parking ticket.
Yeah, it doesn't affect them in any way. If you find them a couple $1 billion, if you take 10, maybe 15% of their earnings because they're not treating their employees properly, there you go. There's your emergency response. And there's you proving that you're on the side of not just the workers in Seattle, but the citizens of Seattle's, not the corporation that has decided to open up a headquarters there.
Dude, it's so crazy. I mean, I'll tell you what, man, especially in the comedy world, a lot of my friends, because I started comedy pretty much in Seattle, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, that was like where I started. And a lot of my friends like that I started with, a lot of them were already in LA because it's just like, you know, at this point, it's like, okay, we're going to be in LA now. But some of the ones who just had no desire to really come to LA, they came to LA anyway because they're just like, Seattle's so expensive. It's like, tomato. It's like almost the same thing. So it's like if I'm gonna be paying this money to live, I might as well live in Los Angeles. I mean, I know people who have made that decision where they're just like, in some cases, depending on like the part of town you're in and depending on like the situation you find, your rent could be less. I mean, overall, LA is more expensive than Seattle. I'm not trying to say that Seattle's more expensive than LA. That's statistically not true.
But in
But like
terms of real
depending,
estate,
well, and just in terms of like the situation you find yourself in, you know, like you might be
It's
able
just-
to more easily find a situation in LA where you end up paying less because maybe it's like that there's just more areas where you would want to live in LA versus Seattle because LA's bigger, blah, blah, blah. But it's nuts, man. It's just absolutely nuts. So, next story is not in Seattle, but it's a Seattle-based company, Starbucks, which originated up in Seattle. And you can still see the original Starbucks up in Seattle. But here's something that Starbucks is doing. Now, keep in mind, we covered this last week on the show where Starbucks had a bullshit excuse to fire everybody in the Memphis store who was trying to unionize. They made up these bullshit excuses to fire 7 workers who were trying to unionize. Well, guess what? They're doing that elsewhere too. And they just did it in Buffalo, which was making a lot of news for their unionization efforts. Breaking, this is also from More Perfect Union. Starbucks has fired one of the leading Starbucks Workers United union organizers in Buffalo. Her name is Cassie Fleshner. She worked at Starbucks for 5 years. She helped Elmwood become the first unionized store in company history and is on the union's bargaining committee. So, More Perfect Union reported on Friday that Starbucks was attempting to use scheduling policy changes to force union leaders in Buffalo out of their jobs. At the time, a Starbucks rep denied that any workers would be fired over the changes. Okay, so what is this referring to? The scheduling policy changes. Here's what that refers to. So, at Starbucks, and this was something that for a long time Starbucks was being praised for, Starbucks would offer benefits to anyone who worked 20 hours a week or more.
Yeah.
So even part-time employees would get benefits. Now, that's a good thing, totally. But here's what happened. Starbucks started getting greedy. Or I guess maybe greedier is the better way to put it. And what they started doing after they got the praise, you know, the PR praise for being a decent company compared to other ones, they started working employees less than 20 hours a week on purpose so that they would just be working just enough that they wouldn't get benefits. So what Starbucks is doing now, they're already doing that to a bunch of employees where they're not giving them a full 20 hours a week so they don't have to give them benefits, which obviously you need at least one other job if you're only working less than 20 hours a week at your job at Starbucks. So you definitely need another job and you're not getting benefits. And chances are your other part-time job ain't going to give you benefits either. So it kind of screws you over big time. So that's what Starbucks has been doing for a while now. Starbucks employees are trying to unionize to fight back against this. So what is Starbucks doing? Well, now they're saying, oh, because of scheduling policy conflicts, which means, which by the way, what that means is if you're working less than 20 hours a week, they're getting rid of you. So what they're saying is, hey, employees less than 20 hours a week, you're not working that much and we can't afford to keep you. But they're systemically giving you less than 20 hours a week in the first place so they don't have to give you benefits. And who do you think's trying to unionize the hardest? Probably the people who aren't getting benefits. Do you see what's happening here? This is a con from Starbucks. They're saying, you're just not working enough because we're not giving you enough work because we don't want to give you benefits. But you're not working enough, so we need to fire you. That's what this is. That's what they're doing.
I can tell you from experience that this is what they do to stores, and they put store managers and shift supervisors in a really, really tough position. Because when I was working for Starbucks back in college over the summers, I basically covered a lot of the holidays because we had families, like people that had families, so they would go on vacation over the summer with their kids and stuff.
What
So
was
I'd
your
cover their
favorite?
shift.
What was your favorite coffee themed milkshake to make?
I
That's
blended.
what Starbucks is.
It's just coffee. Yeah, that's what a
coffee
frappuccino is. It's
that is
fucking
literally
terrible.
what well, I'm not going to sit here and say they're not tasty. I mean,
They're
clearly they
tasty.
are tasty. But like that's how Starbucks. I mean, well, first of all, they made their made their mint by just being everywhere, and then they actually burn their coffee because it saves them money. So their actual
Roasted at a higher
coffees,
temperature. Yep.
they roast it at a higher temperature to save time and money, and their coffee freaking sucks as a result. If you ever just get their coffee, it's freaking terrible. But they sell these coffee themed milkshakes. So you could be a grown up. You could basically get a dessert first thing in the morning and feel like a grown up. I'm having an apple fritter and some bullshit macchiato, whatever the hell, because I'm a grown up going to my job. Yeah, you're a grown up who just ordered dessert first thing in the morning to get you through your freaking day. I'm not going to sit here and say I've never done it. I'm not going to sit here and say I've never had a donut in my freaking life. I have in the past. I will in the future. But I at least recognize what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm having dessert right now because I want to. And I will patronize a local freaking donut shop.
Absolutely.
If I can. If I don't have any other options, that's different. But one of the only times I ever have donuts is when I'm in San Francisco, because there's a place called Bob's Donuts that is fucking unreal good. And I will go there and I will get a donut. And they have a little coffee maker in the corner. And if you want your coffee, that's how you get it. And it's been a small business institution for many, many years and hopefully many more to come. And that is where I like to go. Not getting, Starbucks, whatever the fuck.
But no, I whenever I covered vacations, I worked overtime, and my manager got in trouble for scheduling me for overtime.
Really?
Yeah, like the district manager got on his case because they were like, "Oh, we're noticing that there's one or two employees working overtime multiple weeks in a row," and it was like, "Yeah, because I wanted to like help my other employees, and these guys were able to like step up." And then at the end of the month, like in July, I was going to get scheduled a little bit less so that I can take some time off and go do stuff that I want to do. But the manager got in trouble. So the reason I bring that up is for them to come out and say, "Oh, it's a scheduling problem," and they're telling the managers not to schedule most of these part-time people beyond 18 hours so that they don't get benefits.
Mm-hmm.
That's a corporate policy. That's coming from upper management. That's not store manager level, because when you say stuff like that, people will come out and they go, "Oh, well, the store managers can schedule them better. That's a managerial problem." It's like, no, this is a policy problem.
Yeah, they don't have the power to. I mean, they'll get reprimanded from above.
But it's also why managers are part of the working class, and why managers should be supporting unionization and should be out there on strike with their employees if that's what it comes down to, because they're fighting against the same person. Like the same person is shitting on the managers, that's shitting on the baristas and the shift supervisors that work there. So it's something that I think people don't particularly see. And again, it's like, unless you've worked the service industry, it's really difficult to kind of see the little nuances behind it. But yeah, this is kind of a typical way of doing things. And then again, whenever I wasn't able to come in for 35 hours in a week or whatever as a college student, that meant that one of the shift supervisors was either alone in the afternoon to take care of all the afternoon stuff, or alone closing, because I had to go home at 8:30 so that I could, I could only have 25 hours that week. So it screws over everybody.
Why would they limit you to 25? Isn't it like 20
That's
they have to
part-time.
get?
Oh, when I was working there, I don't think they had that policy, but it was 25 or over. And if I would have stayed with them after college, which they didn't want to hire me back, after I graduated, even for like the summer or whatever.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's how they get around all of it.
so they said that if you once you graduate from college, if you work with Starbucks for an additional 3 months at 25 hours, they would start helping me. They would contribute directly to pay off my student loans. Like every month, they just put money
Yeah,
into
because
my student
they
loans.
advertise that they do
Mhm.
that, but then they'll try to get around it by not hiring people back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they got it. It's almost like putting healthcare in the hands of an employer and putting education in the hands of an employer is a shitty idea that's going to backfire.
But it
It's
also
almost like
breaks
that.
it also breaks that myth that these billionaires at these corporations that have, it's great that they have these policies, but they're working around it. They know
They're
how to get
working around
around
it.
it. So to me, whenever you talk about quote ethical capitalism, it's like, well, sure,
There's
that's
no
something
such
that
thing.
works in paper, but it doesn't exist.
It doesn't
Because
exist.
if ethical capitalism exists, there wouldn't be all these fucking loopholes for Starbucks to get around. They're very nice policies to help people. Like that's not what they're doing. So it just goes to show, like, and again, like those construction workers pointed out, it's not like they don't have the money to provide healthcare for their employees.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you look at, look at the wealth Howard Schultz has. Look at,
Mhm.
what the shareholders get. I mean, they could easily just treat everybody better, but then the machine won't work the way they want it to as well. They
Mhm.
won't get as much. They won't be able to be as greedy, and it's just it's so remarkable. I mean, I remember like I had a day job once where they offered tuition remission.
Mhm.
I was just working in an office, but they offered tuition remission, and at the time I was thinking about trying to go back to grad school, and I did the math, and it's like, they did have a legit tuition remission program, but like to take advantage of it, you would have to. I mean, I did the math, and I'm like, I would have to work at this place for like about 15 years. I would have to I'd still be there. Like I was like, I'd have to give them like 15 years of my life, and if I don't, I would have to pay back the tuition. Like I'd have to pay it back. I mean, so it's like
Yeah.
if you don't read the fine print on these things,
Yep.
I mean, that's why it's just like the only way we're going to be able to ethically have these types of things in our society is if we have universal healthcare, Medicare for all, if we have tuition-free college, and it's done, throughout the country. This whole thing, like just putting it on employers. At the end of the day, this just shows how morally bankrupt and completely inefficient such a thing is, because these are capitalists who are just counting the beans at the end of the day.
Mhm.
That's what's happening. So it's like that's why this is going on. I mean, it can be traced back to that theme. Everything we've talked about so far can be traced back to that theme. Why is this stuff going on with the Teamsters in Seattle? Well, because they're nickel and diming their healthcare during a pandemic, no less. And they're demanding, like, hey, you can't do that. Why is this stuff going on at Starbucks? Well, because they don't want to give benefits to people. So now they're screwing them over because they're trying to unionize. And it's like these problems should have never happened in the first place.
Mhm.
Because we never should have had healthcare tied to employment. We never should have had, all this nonsense where to get a higher education, you have to go into crippling amounts of debt. In other countries, they don't have these problems. They have problems. They have discrepancies where workers maybe, they want better wages or they want this and that. So they go on strike. Of course, that happens everywhere. That happens in Germany. That happens in France. That happens everywhere. And you know what happens though? They get it way better. They strike and they get a 28-hour work week. That's what they were striking for. They're like, hey, you know what? 28 hours is enough. Because it is enough, by the way. That's plenty. That's what they're striking for. Here, we're striking for just, hey, you can't take our health care away. Hey, you can't, fire us because we're trying to get a fair amount of hours so we can get benefits. It's freaking nuts.
In the 1880s, labor organizers were striking for a 10-hour workday because they were working 12 plus hours. They were asking for a 10-hour workday. And what did corporations do? Well, they hired the Pinkertons, much like they hire cops now, to go attack the strikers, right? And like 10 hours is like that's bare minimum, back
That's
then.
nuts.
That's
Yeah,
nuts
that's so crazy to think. And by the way, the only reason that's gotten better is because of unions.
because of unions and
Unions got
striking
us a
workers.
weekend. Yeah, unions got us weekends. Unions got us an 8-hour workday. Unions got us, I mean, all that stuff. And now it's like, I mean, when you look at this stuff, especially now, like where they're just like, oh, we're gonna roll it back. We can hire 14-year-olds for this. It's like they're creeping into, we're just gonna do away with child labor laws. And it's amazing that things keep getting worse and worse for workers as opposed to better.
And they'll use part-time employment to go after child labor laws too, or to circumvent child labor laws, because that's what they did
That's
in
what they've
terms of adult
done.
workers.
And they plant the seeds. They plant the seed.
Mhm.
They turn people off. Like, oh, minimum wage isn't a living wage. The minimum wage was put in place for 14-year-olds that just want some extra spending money. No, a minimum wage was put in place to be a living wage. That's not like no one. Oh, we need a minimum wage so that 14-year-olds can have some extra spending money. No, that's not the freaking point. Everybody should get a living wage, no matter who they are, no matter what they do. Every wage should be a living wage. That's the point of a minimum wage. It should be a living wage, where this is the minimum you need to freaking survive.
That and it says something when I'm in a lot of these circumstances, these 14-year-olds have to go to work in order to help their family survive. Like
Yeah, no
that
kidding.
says something huge about the state of your country. That you have to circumvent child labor laws so that families can get through the week.
Yeah, and not just that, but like another reason why that whole talking point is absolute nonsense is that over half the people on minimum wage are people with families anyway.
Yep.
They're people working to support their families. That's most of the
Mhm.
people who get paid minimum wage in this country. It's not just like 14-year-olds looking for a couple extra bucks. It's like, but that bullshit talking point has helped get. I mean, it's like those are little things that kind of creep into our society and our vernacular, and people just accept that as normal. People accept that as okay. And then look at what it leads to. It leads to the situation we're in now. It leads to like, oh, they're going to let like 13, 14, a bunch of people are just going to be able to work. They're going to lower the age for people to be full-time truckers. They're going to lower the age for this, lower the age for that. I mean, we're going backwards. And it's like, we're here. This is feudalism. We're here. Damn, dude. Well, here's something that is actually even more shitty and depressing than all the stuff we've been talking about. This is also really terrible. I don't have anything uplifting for you, Krish. I'm sorry.
No.
But this takes us to Portland. We've had a Northwest theme in the show today. A 6-year-old woman was killed after a man who reportedly had radical right-wing views shot at anti-racist protesters. So there was a protest up in Portland recently against police brutality and against the murdering of people by police. So here's what's going on. A man who police say opened fire at an anti-racist protest in Portland on Saturday, killing one person and injuring at least 4 others, had radical right-wing views and a history of threatening violence, according to people who knew him. This is from BuzzFeed News. Benjamin Smith, who 43 years old, was identified police as a suspect on Tuesday after anti-fascist researchers in the Oregonian had previously named him. He's currently hospitalized in serious condition because someone fired back. He fired into a group of people. Somebody fired back. Now, by the way, the people who fired back, I'm pretty sure they're being held right now. So this guy fired into a crowd of people. Someone else fired back. But apparently that's not going to be treated like self-defense, which is that's something.
Oh,
That
but
is
Kyle
something.
Rittenhouse, though, that was the case, right?
Right.
That was the
Right.
case that was going to determine everything about self-defense, and here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
What? 2 months
So
after that?
this is the person that got killed. This is the person that got killed, June Knightley. And by the way, you know what she was doing? She was helping guide traffic. She wasn't, I mean, she was there with the anti-racist protesters, but she was just guiding traffic. She wasn't yelling or threatening anybody or doing anything. She was helping guide traffic. This guy was apparently yelling at people, so they were like, hey, you got to go. So he starts firing. And he killed her. Here's some quotes. She just had that demeanor about her to keep everyone calm and keep everyone safe. She was just a bright light of a motherly figure as well, and that's why everybody warmed up to her almost immediately because of what she did for everyone else. Knightley is survived by her wife, Catherine Knapp, and an adult son. She was so beautiful inside and out, Nat told the outlet. I was so proud of her and all the work that she's been doing in this movement with Black Lives Matter. A man approached them, began yelling at them, calling them violent terrorists and misogynistic slurs. He also threatened to shoot them if they passed his house. They tried to de-escalate the situation, but he then began firing. Beck was shot in her side and her knee. That's someone else who was there. And then she saw my two friends on the ground covered in blood. One of them was Knightley. In a news release on Sunday, police said they believe the incident started with a confrontation between an armed homeowner and armed protesters. But Beck said on Twitter that was not the case. And the video of the shooting captured on a GoPro camera will substantiate that. We were unarmed traffic safety volunteers who weren't with any protesters, Beck tweeted. So I guess they weren't even with any protesters. They were just traffic safety volunteers. 4 women trying to de-escalate, and he unloaded a .45 into us because he didn't like being asked to leave. Oh, and he was calling them terrorist cunts. So these people are just directing traffic. 4 women, 4 unarmed women, directing traffic. Some guy's yelling at them, threatening them, saying he's going to shoot them. They're asking him to leave. He's calling them terrorist cunts. And then he starts shooting at them. A law enforcement source told the Oregonian an armed protester who has not yet been identified shot Smith in defense after he'd opened fire. And we'll see what happens to that guy. Apparently, he might be held. He opened fire because this guy was shooting at 4 unarmed traffic volunteers. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, here's what people say about this guy. As the years went on, he's just gotten more and more radicalized. He got angrier and angrier. I've not been comfortable living with him for a while. This is one of his, his roommate. I did not feel safe with him, especially these last 2 years with the whole COVID thing. I think that made him even more angry. Smith was active on Reddit. He praised Kyle Rittenhouse, who was found not guilty of charges, including murder, after shooting at protesters in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Lead by example. Because what this guy's going to do is the same thing that Rittenhouse did by saying, "Oh, I thought my life was in danger," and get away with it. Well, what about the person that shot him in actual legitimate self-defense?
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens to the person. Hey, he was shooting into a crowd of people.
I would say if the people that were on Kyle Rittenhouse's side aren't on the side of the of the protester that fired back.
No kidding. Smith, no kidding.
You guys don't give a shit about self-defense. You're gonna come out as ideologues. That's all. And I would wager to bet, because of this guy's politics, because he has anti-racist politics, there's gonna be a large percentage of people that were on Kyle Rittenhouse's side that are gonna say that this guy was
the guy who shot back when the guy was shooting.
Yeah, the protester is not. Oh, it's not self-defense. He's just violent. Look at because they're protesters and it's like, well, Smith was violent. There was no provocation.
This guy was just minding his business, shooting a bunch of unarmed traffic guards,
just exercising that 2A. Like, I know if this story hits big on mainstream media, the argument is no longer going to be about what the fuck is this guy, what's going to happen to Smith, who unloaded on 4 unarmed women directing traffic, and how is the media, and I guarantee you this is why corporate media won't pick it up. It's because there's no spin. You can't spin this in any positive light to make it a story about gun rights, to make it a story about defending freedoms and liberties and all that shit. So corporate media won't pick it up. But it's like, this is an important story that's basically going to show you how all the shit from Kyle Rittenhouse about being, oh, this is going to determine self-defense forever, was all bullshit.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize that before we had, the stand your ground laws in Florida, and because I'm pretty sure Wisconsin, I don't think the exact verbiage they use is stand your ground, but they have like similar policy to my understanding. Before we had that, there was a totally different, like if you use deadly force, it was a totally different process where you really had to justify if I did not use this deadly force, I would not be standing here right now. And if you didn't, I mean, you were facing at least something. Now, because of those laws, because of these stand your ground laws, like that's not really, like the burden of proof has changed. And to me, that says that these laws are pretty messed up. These laws are pretty messed up. I mean, like Stephen Colbert, I definitely don't agree with every take that guy has, especially as of recent. There's a lot of things he said that I found to be pretty cringe. But, when he said the thing about Rittenhouse, I think he was right on, where he's just like, okay, if Rittenhouse is in violation of no laws here, that means the law needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's telling us. That's telling us that the law is pretty messed up. And, I read some things from actual attorneys who like that they've been following these laws and they've been following it and they were practicing pre-stand your ground type policies and post-stand your ground type policies. And they're saying like, yeah, this is messed up. And this is opening a floodgate for a lot more violence.
And here we are.
This guy, people just directing traffic during a protest for unarmed women. This guy just opens fire into them.
I feel threatened at 4 unarmed women telling me to leave.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude.
Get the fuck out of here. But there are going to be people that are going to be on this guy's side.
Oh, of course.
We don't know the story. What did they say? Who
I'll
gives
never
a
forget,
shit, man? They're unarmed.
I will never forget one time, because especially like whenever it's a police involved shooting, there are some people who will just go to the propaganda immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never forget, I was talking about one of the shootings that actually happened in my old neighborhood, Pasadena. And I was talking about it. And this guy's like, Ron, you're not telling the full story. And he starts going on and on about why the cop was not in the wrong. He was talking about a different shooting.
Oh,
he was talking. I was just like, you can't even keep. Lucy's concerned. She's like, this is an upsetting topic. We need snuggles. It's a little cold here in Southern California, Chris. So she's been very clingy because it's a little cold. It's the most adorable thing in the world. And I know that, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm apologizing in advance because when I say very cold, I mean it went down into the 40s. So I get it. I know. I know.
Our highs, Ron. Those were our highs in Pittsburgh now.
I know. I've acclimatized. What are you going to do? I've been out here like 5 years. Or no, it's been longer than that. It's been like 6 years. But but yeah, it's just like, I mean, this is the type of country we are. I mean, we are a brutal, violent country who is an apologist for the most like ridiculous shit. Like people in other countries were just confused by all this. Like they're just like, people got killed and you're just carrying around guns like this with no, and it's just like, yeah, but that's considered normal here. That's considered normal. In other countries, it'd be so freaking messed up. And it'd be so like people would be like, holy shit. Whenever there's a shooting at all, everyone just fucking goes like, they just shut down and they're like, holy fuck, how did this happen? Which is the human response, by the way. Here in the United States, we're just like, it's Tuesday.
Yep.
It's nuts. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, you saw the response, be it Rittenhouse or just pick any cop shooting. And it's just like, people are like, how are you guys normalizing all this stuff? How are your laws set up in a way where there's just like no accountability? And it's like, yeah, this is what we've gotten to.
And I think you really start seeing some change or change starts getting forced into legislative action when people are tired of the way things are being normalized. These shootings were normalized. School shootings were normalized. Attacking protesters was normalized. We in Pittsburgh a few years ago, somebody drove through a protest for a police shooting, and of Antoine Rose, and it was just normalized. And people were like, well, they shouldn't have been blocking traffic. And it's like, you're concerned about traffic over human lives?
Dude, it's so freaking nuts.
I mean, what are your priorities?
Like, what is our capitalism, really?
Yeah, right.
I mean, what about the people? It's like they're protecting the buildings. They're protecting. I mean, it's like everyone. They're all rioters. Meanwhile, it's like in every single Black Lives Matter protest that happened in response to police killings, they were peaceful, and then the cops showed up.
Yeah.
And by the way, I saw it. I mean, and you were privy to some of the stuff that was happening in Pittsburgh, where they kettled the protesters. I was privy to the stuff. I mean, I saw it. Yeah, I freaking saw it. It was just everyone was peaceful. There was not a violent person in sight. And then all of a sudden, these police officers, they were decked to the nines. I filmed it. They were getting in their riot gear. There were a bunch of people just walking around. And one guy had an acoustic guitar. There was no, but they're getting decked to the nines. All of a sudden, there's just this random police car that looked like something from the 80s, and it's on fire. And all of a sudden, things start getting violent. And it's like, you're instigating all this. You want people. They would have all these cop cars strategically placed. No one messed with it. They wanted someone to mess with it so they could start cracking heads. No one did. No one did. So then they did it themselves. It's freaking nuts. And people just accept it. And people make up excuses for it.
Now,
and
to be fair,
holy shit.
To be fair, Ron, I mean, an acoustic guitar is the most dangerous of all weapons because
it's a machine that kills fastest.
It's a machine that kills fastest. And we all know that a cover of Wonderwall is the thing that leads you down Marxism. We all know it. That's Oasis leads you down that path, and that's why it has to be stopped. That's why it has to be stopped, Ron.
Yeah, boy.
Okay.
All right, so let's go into digital rights to close out the show. So, as you guys know, and I will be fully I'll be fully upfront about my bias, and a lot of you guys know this. Fight for the Future is one of the prominent digital rights organizations in the United States. They do amazing work. I've had the privilege of collaborating with them formally on a couple campaigns, and I've also informally collaborated with them as well, and I will do so again in the future. They do amazing things for net neutrality. They do amazing things to fight against facial recognition. One of their campaigns was against an e-proctoring software company called Proctorio, or Proctorio, however you pronounce it. And it's this testing software that basically tries to stop cheating when you're taking an at-home exam. But it's very vulnerable to hacking. It's very faulty put together. It's very kind of creepy and it's overreaching. And it's something that basically Fight for the Future started a knowledge campaign letting schools know, hey, this is what this stuff actually does. You probably shouldn't use this and should probably seek a better solution for at-home testing. This is not the answer. This is not the way. So Fight for the Future did a campaign on that. And Proctorio didn't like it, or Proctorio. I don't Proctorio. Whatever. It's a weird word to say.
Honestly, it just sounds like an app for proctologists.
It really does. It sounds like just something going up your butt. That's what it sounds like. So this is the butt testing company. We'll call them that because they're being jerks. So this is the butt testing company, the butt test. Whatever. Screw them. Anyway. Breaking, today we can reveal that e-proctoring spyware company Proctorio is harassing us with a wildly broad subpoena indicating they will sue us if we don't comply. To stop their attempt to silence our advocacy, we have filed a motion to squash. So basically, Fight for the Future was telling people what this software actually does, which is, they're a digital rights advocacy group. That's kind of what they do. And Proctorio is trying to sue. So here's an article from The Verge. Proctorio subpoenas digital rights group and legal spat with critical student. Okay, so the controversial proctoring platform Proctorio, which sounds like a butt testing software thing, just sounds like something going up your butt. No one stopped and said, this is a stupid name for our dumb spyware company. But they went with it anyway, Proctorio. It sounds like a shitty band that, it sounds like a shitty hardcore band, like a hardcore band that just doesn't care. We're Proctorio. You're a bunch of trust fund kids and your music sucks. Anyway, Proctorio has filed a broad subpoena.
I want to. Can I state one thing? This is not in the article, but I did some extra digging right before the show, and I did find out that this is a mandatory Proctorio rule that everybody has to sign their emails with the peach emoji. That's just what they.
Nice. All right. So, the controversial Procter blah blah blah. They filed a broad subpoena against the prominent digital rights nonprofit Fight for the Future as part of its legal battle with Miami University student Eric Johnson and what the group describes as an effort to silence critics. So the fight between Johnson and the company began in September of 2020 when the student published a lengthy Twitter thread criticizing their practices, including excerpts of the platform's source code that he posted on Pastebin. So he's publishing their own stuff. He's saying this is what they're doing. He's not misrepresenting them. The Electronic Frontier Foundation then sued Proctorio on Johnson's behalf, arguing the takedown had interfered with his First Amendment rights. So Proctorio filed a copyright takedown notice. Hey, you're sharing with people what we're doing. You're blowing the whistle on us. That infringes on our copyright. That's the mental gymnastics we're going to try to do. We're going to try to make this a copyright thing. And I'm sure there's plenty of lawyers who will gladly do our evil bidding. So the EFF sued Proctorio on Johnson's behalf, arguing the takedown had interfered with his First Amendment right. So Proctorio is one of the most prominent software platforms that schools use to watch for cheating on remote tests. It records students through their webcams as they work, not creepy at all, monitoring their head positioning, again, not creepy at all, and flags possible signs of cheating to professors. The company had embroiled in several... What is it? Possible signs of cheating? Hey, this student picked their nose. We think they're cheating.
If you blink in Morse code.
Yeah, right?
With blinking in Morse code.
So people have criticized this platform, reasonably so, and now they're trying to sue. First, they tried to sue a student who published the stuff they're actually doing. They're saying, oh, that's our copyright. You can't share our bullshit. Only we can try to keep our bullshit secret. Copyright infringement. So amid the EFF's lawsuit, filed in the Proctorio appears to be taking on yet another one of its critics. Not only has Fight for the Future been publicly critical of Proctorio and other remote proctoring platforms on social media, I wonder what some of the other ones are called. Proctologist Test Inc. Webcam on the students. They might get
Culinario.
Culinario. I was trying to think of another one.
Competitor.
I can't really judge. I can't judge too harshly because if you just take all the letters of Get Your News On with Ron, it spells gyno WR. So gynecologist wide receiver. That's my show. It's a football position. Welcome to gynecologist wide receiver. I'm your host, Ron Placone. So I guess I can't talk. I mean, I didn't realize that when I titled this show. But
touchdown with the pap smear. That's welcome to...
man, that's got to be the new slogan. You get a touchdown with a pap. Then a bunch of people will come in really confused. Like, he didn't talk about football once. He talked about strikes, labor issues, digital rights, police brutality, but he didn't even mention football other than he doesn't follow it much. He likes hockey better. That's just Oh, boy. All right. So the subpoena requests that FFTF, Fight for the Future, produce all documents and communications between itself and EFF, Eric Johnson, and Ian Linkletter, as well as any related to the proctoring software industry. I can't believe that would be like an overreach ask. We want all of your communications. We like creepy for surveillance, and we want more of it, baby. Fight for the Future has filed a motion to quash the subpoena, probably because it's freaking ridiculous. Here's what they have to say. FFTF is not a party to the Arizona litigation and indeed has no meaningful connection to the claims asserted by Johnson and Proctorio. It denounces the subpoena as part of an effort to intimidate and gain access to the strategies of digital human rights advocates who highlight the harm of Proctorio's business practices. And again, just to be fully transparent in our bias, pro Fight for the Future guy here. They inform a lot of the content on this show. A lot of their members have been guests on this show. Joe Thornton has been a guest on this show. Leah Holland has been a guest on this show. Evan Greer has been a guest multiple times on this show. And I'm a big fan of her music, too. I've collaborated with Fight for the Future in the past. I hope to again in the future. So definitely a pro Fight for the Future perspective here. But this seems like nonsense on Proctorio's part, and screw them.
Yeah. I'm actually anti-Fight for the Future because I don't care about the future. I want to be here. I want to be here now, Ron. This is about the press.
Here now.
I mean, It's like you pointed out, it's hilarious that the company that's being called out for spying too much wants to get all of your information so it can spy on you more as its
Yeah.
defense for not spying. Like, how do you prove that you're not spying? Do it more. What, like, how is this logical? At this point, it's just like you can't be the person that's in charge of like testing and figuring out whether people are cheating at testing, because you're cheating. That's like, but it's just so creepy that we're using facial recognition software, which doesn't work, to monitor exams. Like, why? It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
So for the call to action today, before we sign out, you can go to fightforthefuture.org if you want to help them out in this pursuit and learn more about everything they got going on, which they've actually been doing a lot of awesome stuff. We've been covering on this show. They've been going after the Earn It Act, which is a terrible piece of legislation. They're trying to put a halt to that. They've been carrying the flag for net neutrality, as they always do. So fightforthefuture.org to learn more about them and see how you can help them out with this. Let's see here. Let's go to the chat because, Chris, some of this pertains to you. Venetia David, what's up? Hope everything is great out in the UK. Can't wait to see you out there. And Venetia says, Chris is my favorite guest. Yeah,
Aw,
there you go,
thank
Chris.
you. I appreciate that. That's
Yeah.
very kind of you.
And Venetia is in the UK, so she spelled favorite with a U, which is
Hell
cool.
yeah.
I like it. I like
That's
it.
how I used to spell favorite too, and then I got marked
Then you
wrong in
came
American
here.
spelling tests.
Did it really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you
and
fight
for-
it? You should have fought that.
I did. I made an argument, and my my teacher's response was, "Well, that's not how we do things here."
Well, your teacher sucked. Or maybe they were a nice person. They just got that one wrong, in my humble
Yeah.
opinion. But
Yeah.
no, it's so funny. There was this meme I saw online where it was like, it was this, or not really a meme. It was like one of those articles that's not actually an article. It's just a collection of like memes and stuff taken online to like prove a theme. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it was just like how Americans are so freaking insufferable. Like that was like the theme of it. And it showed a bunch of stuff of just Americans being absolutely ridiculous. But one of the ones that they showed was this person was responding to something that the American posted. And of course, the American had a cringe take on something. And this person was responding to it. And I think the word color was in their response. So they spelled it with a U. And the American responded and they were like, well, I'm assuming you're not very good at English, considering how you can't spell color. I'm just trying to help. And the person responds, and they're just like, I'm British. Like, it's just, oh, it's amazing.
I'm not if you heard. I don't know if you heard, but we kind of invented the language.
Yes. When we made your language shittier, this is what we did to it. The British English is so much better, dude. It is so. British slang is so ridiculously funny.
It
is
the best.
So funny. It is the best. And if anyone's like, what are you talking about? Watch the show In-Betweeners, not the US one.
Yes.
I've never even seen the US one, but the British one. Watch the British In-Betweeners. It is so freaking funny. And I think, if I'm being honest, I think part of the reason I think it's as funny as I do is because I watch, like their slang is just so funny. It's so
outrageous.
Funny.
You hear what's the other show where they all discover that they have superpowers? It's one of those shows, but that's another show where they have a ton of English.
Are you thinking
slang.
Umbrella Academy?
No,
You're not thinking Umbrella Academy.
No, it was done before that, and now I'm blanking on the name. I'll tweet it out, and I'll tag you in it once I remember which one it is. But it's a show where they discover that they all have superpowers, and it's a British show, but they have a ton of British slang in it, and I think it makes it funnier because it's like I'm like I want these slangs to be here because you're so ridiculous and amazing. Like I want. One of the actors from Umbrella Academy is actually on that show, and I'm the Misfits. It's called Misfits.
Oh, I haven't seen it. I gotta watch it. Well, no, it's yeah. There's and then what sucks is like when we say it, it's not as funny because it's like it's way funnier when it's like it's said by someone with a proper British accent. Like it's just way fun. Like when we say it, it's like the word fanny is just such a really funny word. But when I say it, it's just kind of like whatever. But when they say it, it's never not funny. Like it's always just great. But
My
when we say it, it just sounds like weird. Like, I saw her fanny. That just sounds really dumb coming out of my mouth. But when they say it, it's just
gold.
great. It's always
incredible.
great. It's always great. Venetia, you say, Venetia also says, I appreciate that you are such an Anglophile, Ron. Thank you for that, Venetia. I appreciate it very much. And shout out to your slang. I love your slang. Let's see. Paul, what's up? In a discussion about Biden and student debt court cases, 14-year-old kids can work to pay off mom's students' loans, according to courts in the Biden administration. Oh, my God. Feudalism. We're here. We're here. We are
That's
here.
called access.
Oh,
to
my God.
That's called access to paying off your student loans, I believe.
I haven't heard about this. I'll have to look into it. Paul, thanks for bringing it to my attention. But yeah, I'll reread what Paul shares here. In a discussion about Biden and student loan debt court cases, 14-year-old kids can work to pay off mom's student loans, according to courts in the Biden administration. Wow. So this new generation, not only are we giving them no chance whatsoever, but they can help their parents with the not chance their parent has. So it's like,
and this is what they call socialism.
Oh my God. Oh my, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's just like, the boomers had it better than Gen X. Gen X had it better than millennials. Millennials had it better than Gen Z, but it's like, it's been progressively shittier for everyone. So now it's just like, if you had the least amount of a chance, you can at least help those who had a shitty chance. Wow. This is the United States. We're here. It's feudalism. We're here. We're for sure here. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Paul. Much appreciated. Robert Gilbert, what's up? Hold on. I'm coming. Got tickets for Boston. See you there. Robert,
yeah.
I am thrilled to hear that. And you'll see Chris in Boston too, by the way. You'll see both of us, which I guess we'll go ahead and plug tour dates. Now, April, I'm going to be on the road and Chris is opening those shows. April 16th, Pittsburgh. April 18th, Toronto. April 20th, Ottawa. April 21st, Montreal. We're coming for you, Canada. April 22nd, Burlington, Vermont. April 23rd, Portland, Maine. April 24th, Boston, Massachusetts, baby. See you there, Robert Gilbert. And April 25th, New York City. Chris is going to be opening all those shows, and Lauren Ashcraft will also be on the show in Pittsburgh and New York City. Get your tickets now, ronplacone.com. Don't wait. Grab them now. Thank you to Venetia, Paul, and Robert for the Super Chat contributions. You help keep this show on the air. And Krish, where can people go to learn more about you?
Easiest way to find all my videos and podcasts is right on my website at krishmohanhaha.com. It's KRISHMOHANHAHA.com. And you can also make donations, become sustaining members, and join my free email list so you never miss a video or podcast that I put out.
All right, Chris. Thanks for being here, buddy. See you
Thanks
next.
for having me.
See you next month, man.
Yes, sir.
All right. Peace. Everyone, check it out. KrishMohanhaha.com. Chris, he's on the show every month on this Thursday. So we'll see him next month. And then you can see him on the road. For those of you who are coming out to the shows, you'll see him on the road. Again, ronplacone.com for all those tickets. If you want to support this show on the sustainability end, best thing to do, become a patron. Patreon.com/ronplacone. For a give what you can level, you get all kinds of exclusive perks. I just dropped a full stand-up set from a show a couple weeks back. That's for patrons and Rockfin Premium members only. Patreon.com/ronplacone. I'll make you a theme song. Got a few theme song orders coming up. Excited to get on those, but definitely want some more. And that's all for a give what you can level. Even $1 a month goes a long way. If you are able, please consider it. Patreon.com/ronplacone. This is the first year where all of my content pursuits are a full-time endeavor. And I'm trying to make a couple mini pilots, trying to launch a few podcast series. And of course, I still got the movie going, but you can check that out over at GoFundMe.com and type in Left at Wall. That's Left at Wall. Guys, thank you so much for being here. We'll be back next week. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy, she says meow, and I say peace. Peace.